This is Jeff Bezos, founder and CEO of Amazon.com, the nation's largest web-based bookseller. He spoke last month about what led him to create an online bookseller, his experiences in the early days of the company, and his business philosophy. His comments coming up from the Association of American Publishers annual meeting in Washington, D.C. First, an introduction by Penguin Putnam CEO Michael Linton.
In 1934, Alan Lane published a series of color-coded paperbacks called Penguins. None of the booksellers of the day would take them at first because they said they were too cheap, and he turned to Woolworths for distribution, a radical idea at the time. His fellow publishers were convinced his efforts would fail, and of course, Alan Lane proved how dynamic book publishing and distribution can be and proved them all wrong. In 1997, I went to listen to Jeff Bezos on his roadshow for Amazon's initial public offering. He described another revolution in book distribution. While the story was compelling, I stupidly did not buy any stock. And the same actually goes for most publishers I know, which says a little bit about us, I think. And of course, Amazon has gone on to dramatically alter the distribution of books. It's ironic that the oldest of the media businesses should be the first affected dramatically by the internet. Jeff's vision has today provided us with a service that is not only changing the way people buy books, it is, one could argue, providing a service that has improved book buyers' lives, or at least many Amazon users would argue so. I'm pleased to introduce Jeff Bezos.
Thank you, Michael. I think the reason that publishers didn't invest is because they're inherently sensible. I'm going to tell you the story of one company's e-commerce experience and what that's meant for us. First, a little bit about what Amazon.com is today. We have a store with millions of titles. We have recently opened a store in the UK. We've recently opened a store in Germany. We have a music store, we have a video store, we're expanding into new product categories. We've innovated. Some of the stuff we're most proud of is where we've innovated. Things like one-click shopping, our associates program, some of the store-wide sales rank, which allows you to see not just what the best 100 selling books are, but what's the 1 millionth bestseller at Amazon.com. Things like instant recommendations, where we use your past purchases to try and guess what you might be interested in. Now, one of the most unusual things, though, probably about Amazon.com is the rapid growth. And we can't take credit for this. It comes because the internet was growing so fast. So mostly the internet has been pulling us along. And the thing we can take credit for is trying to keep up with it. Let me give you some sense of this. Today, we are the equivalent in sales of about 200 big chain superstores. And the amazing thing about that is that in the last quarter, in the fourth quarter of last year, that's when we opened 80 of those superstores. So we opened about, just under one every 30 hours or so. We have now about 2,100 employees, and just less than 2 years ago, it was 125. We have 6.2 million customers today, and we ship regularly to over 160 different countries every week. And there's some unusual stuff going on with the countries. I can tell you an anecdote that shows you how powerful this is and how it helps other people get the books that they need. We had a customer, it was either Romania or Bulgaria. I think it was Bulgaria. And the customer wanted some technical books, and he sent us, and he paid for these books in an unusual way. He sent us cash, which is a method of payment which we discourage. And even within that, it was unusual, because the guy didn't have a credit card. He had internet access in Bulgaria, but no credit card. So but he took the cash, 2 crisp $100 bills, and he folded them up very small and put them inside a floppy disk. And then he mailed us the floppy disk. And on the cover of the floppy disk was a little note that said, the money is inside the floppy disk. The customs inspectors steal the money, but they don't read English. And sure enough, we, ripped open the floppy disk, and there were these two crisp $100 bills. The customer got their books, and everything was happy. But please use credit cards. It's easier for everybody. I believe that the #1 factor behind our growth and ability to cope with that growth is our focus on customer experience. And we've been completely obsessive about this. I tell folks inside Amazon.com to be anal retentive about this, but not orally fixated. I think that would be going too far. And we've demonstrated that we do a good job with this. One of the statistics that I'm most proud of is that even with this high rate of new customer growth, more than 63% of the orders we receive every day are from customers who've purchased from us in the past. And those people, one of the things that businesses have to understand, if there's one thing that we have learned and that we can teach others about how to do business online, it's that word of mouth is dramatically accelerated online. This is because there are things like Usenet news groups and listservs where people can communicate with others very, very powerfully. The internet is like a big megaphone for these folks. And so in this environment, in this new world, if you make a customer unhappy, as we occasionally do, they don't tell a few friends, they tell 5,000 friends. And likewise, of course, that can work in your advantage. If you turn a customer into an evangelist, they will also tell 5,000 friends. So you just get this accelerant in both directions on word of mouth. Now what this means for a business is that the balance of power shifts away from the business and toward the consumer. I don't think anybody in this room can argue that that's a bad thing. That's a great thing. It does mean that the business, the merchant, has to operate in a slightly different way. And what it means in particular is that you have to, let's say if in the previous world you had to put, let's say, 30% of your energy, dollars, focus, attention on building a great customer experience, and then you put 70% of your energy and focus and dollars into shouting about it. I believe online you invert those. It's still important to shout, but I think you should put 30% of your energy into shouting and 70% of your energy into building the best possible customer experience. Now you have a huge, great thing online that helps you develop this customer experience. And that is that customers give you feedback. I believe in the 3.5 years that we've been doing business online, we've probably gotten more feedback from our customers than most businesses have gotten in 30 years. And the reason that happens is because there's something strange about email, which is how we receive almost all of our feedback. And that is that email turns off the politeness gene in the human being. And this is a wonderful thing. I recommend to restaurants that they put their email address prominently on their menu. Because everybody in this room, I suspect most of you, if you're like me at least, when you have a bad meal at a restaurant, you don't tell them because it's so unpleasant. You just leave and never come back. But by email, people have a certain amount of bravery, so they tell you the truth about your service. And customer experience is end-to-end. It starts from when people first visit the website to when they get the package. Is the website easy to use? When you get the package, is it the right stuff? Is it in good condition? And even, is the packaging easy to open? A couple of years ago, when we used a different packaging method than we do today, I got an email message from an 80-year-old woman who said, "I love your service. I use it all the time. But I do have to wait for my son to come over to open the packages." He said, you need a crowbar to get through your packaging material. Could you do something about this? And so that kind of feedback from customers is very helpful in trying to modify and improve a service. So let me tell you a little bit about the beginnings of Amazon.com and how this came to be. In the spring of 1994, I was working at a very specialized kind of investment firm in New York City called D.E. Shaw & Co. It was a quantitative hedge fund. The computers made all the trading decisions. And I came across this startling statistic that web usage was growing at 2,300% a year. This is very unusual. Things don't grow this fast. And it was one of these weird quirks of mathematics that you could know the growth rate without knowing the baseline usage. But you could tell anecdotally that the baseline usage wasn't trivial. And anything that doesn't have trivial baseline that's growing 2,300% a year is kind of invisible today and ubiquitous tomorrow. So the question was, what kind of business plan could one concoct that might make sense in the context of that rapid growth? And I made a list of 20 different products and force-ranked those, looking for the first best product to sell online. And I started with a list of mail-order products. You know, apparel is a huge mail-order product. Books actually are a fairly small mail-order category, and the fraction that is mail-order is mostly membership clubs. So, but somehow books went from being at the bottom of the list, or almost at the bottom, it percolated up to the very top. And the reason was that books are incredibly unusual in one respect, and that is that there are so many items in the book category. There are more than 3 million different books active and in print around the world in all languages. And with that, the number 2 category, by the way, is music. There are about 300,000 active music CDs. With that huge diversity of products, you could build a store online that simply could not exist any other way. You could build a true superstore with exhaustive selection. And customers value selection. It's been demonstrated over and over again in all sorts of industries and formats. So what you could do in the book space is create dramatic value for the customer through this proposition of selection. And that's what we did. The largest physical stores, superstores, are about 170,000 titles, and there aren't that many that are that big. So, that was the main reason. There were some other reasons, but that was the primary one. Having made that decision, I had a tough decision. I had to decide to leave D.E. Shanko, and I had a 2-hour walk in Central Park with my boss, who said, "This it sounds like a good business plan, and I support you, but you should know that it would be a better business plan for somebody who didn't already have a good job." And I saw the wisdom of that, and he convinced me to think about it for another 48 hours. And I was trying to figure out how to make that decision, because it was a big decision, and as all you know, it's your life, and you only have one. Well, there are other. I guess not everybody agrees with that, but most people believe you only have one, and that was my operating premise anyway. So so I was trying to figure out what's the right framework in which to make that kind of decision, and I figured out that for me the right framework was a regret minimization framework, by which I mean that when you're 80, you want to have minimized the number of regrets you have in your life. I think a lot of people live their lives this way. Very few are nerdy and dorky enough to call it a regret minimization framework, but that is what I came up with. And so what happened there was, I was thinking, look, so it's the middle of 1994. The kinds of things that confuse you in the short term are things like, you know, I'm walking away from my 94 bonus in the middle of the year. That doesn't make a lot of sense. So then, but you think about when you're 80, you're not going to remember that bonus. It's completely forgettable. And so it was pretty clear to me that I wouldn't regret walking away from those kinds of things. And at the same time, I knew I might regret significantly not participating in this thing called the internet that I believed passionately in. And I also knew, by the way, I suspected that we would fail. And I told all of our early investors that they would lose their money for sure. This is, I think this is a good technique when you're taking money from friends and family, because you still want to be able to go to Thanksgiving dinner. It's very important. So, but I also really did believe that, because those are the odds if you look at the odds of startup companies. But I knew that I wouldn't regret trying and failing, and that I might regret not trying. So once I thought about it in that way, it was an easy decision. It was important, having made that decision, to move fast. And my wife, who's in the audience today, was very supportive. And we decided that we would, we actually decided at the last second, we narrowed it down to 4 cities and decided we would start this business in Seattle. So we flew to Texas, where we got a free car from my dad. And my mother's also in the audience, by the way. And which, by the way, makes me much more nervous than even I would normally be. It's one thing to speak to an audience. It's another thing to have your mother in that audience. She'll be proud of me no matter what happens, but you still. And this is the car that we were given was a 1988 Chevy Blazer, and this is a car that Consumer Reports says not to buy used. The 88 model in particular, not to buy used under any circumstances at any price. However, they say nothing about accepting one for free. So we did that. We didn't have a car because we lived on the Upper West Side in New York City, and cars are a liability. So we flew to Texas, and we drove from Texas to Seattle. We stopped at the Grand Canyon, watched the sunrise there, camped in the National Forest outside because the park itself was full. We stayed at a motel that we tried to get into, the Motel 6. This was in Texas somewhere, and the Motel 6 was full. So we said, well, is there another place that might have room? They said, yeah, there's a place called the Rambler. And my wife said, is that a pretty nice place? And the woman said, well, it's not as nice as the Motel 6. She didn't take her shoes off in the room. But it was actually a clean room. And so we stopped in San Francisco, and where I interviewed a few candidates to try and find somebody who would be our vice president of engineering to lead our software development effort, which was the sort of long pole in the tent, and found the perfect person. He's with us today as our chief technology officer, and it took me 3 months to convince him to come to Amazon.com. Now, our first office was in a garage in our Bellevue house, and we found a house to rent in 5 days once we got to Seattle. And we were looking for some place that would have a garage or something big enough. Now, I have to admit, we wanted a garage in part because we wanted some of that garage startup legitimacy. And we got it. It wasn't the full legitimacy because the garage was enclosed. So they had converted it sort of into a living room. But the good news is it wasn't insulated. So it was very cold, and that gave us some legitimacy. There was a big black pot-bellied stove in the center of this room, which we eventually had to remove. Now, I figured out why most people move out of garages in the startup phase. And I don't think it's, at least if they're computer companies, I don't think it's because they run out of space. I think it's because they run out of electric power. We had so many computers in here that we were flipping the circuit breakers were always flipping. So we had to siphon electric power from all the rooms in the house with these big orange electric extension cords so that they would be on different circuit breakers. By the time we had electric cords siphoning all the power in the house, my wife and I couldn't turn on a hairdryer or a vacuum cleaner. I don't need a hairdryer, but or a vacuum cleaner without blowing a circuit breaker. So it was a time to move. By the way, during this phase, our offices were not very impressive. And so when we did meetings with, there's some people find irony here, but when we did meetings, we did them in a cafe only about a mile away, and that cafe was inside a Barnes & Noble superstore. So that's where all of the early sort of setup meetings were held. So we finally had to move, and we moved into about 1,100 square feet of office space, and this had a basement. There was office space on the second floor, and then a basement warehouse. And the warehouse was about 400 square feet. That's about the size of a 1.5 or 2 car garage. It's a small space. And we had built software systems that were not toy systems, but our distribution center, in quotes, which was 400 square feet, was a toy. And I remember one of the developers, the day before we opened, as we were looking at this space, said, I can't figure out if this is incredibly optimistic or hopelessly pathetic. And that was truly how we felt. We just didn't know. You know, we'd been working for a year at this point, putting together our software systems, doing all the preliminary things, forming relationships and so on that you need to do to turn on the switch and open yourselves up to the public. John Ingram is here in the audience somewhere, and I've told him this story already, and I've also told the folks at Baker & Taylor. We had a problem, which was during our testing phase, and also we thought during our first few months or maybe even first year of business that we wouldn't be able to meet the 10-book minimum that the wholesalers required to be able to ship. Even if you're willing to pay you have to buy at least 100 books at once to waive shipping charges, but you have to buy 10 to do anything. And so we talked to them, to the sales folks, you know, is there some way, can we pay you a fee of $30 a month or something? Can we pay you some fee so that you can waive that 10-book minimum? Because we're going to get started slowly and it's going to take a long time for things to develop. And they said no, and you know, it's just complicated and it's not worth the effort. You'll just have to order 10 books. So we found a loophole. The loophole was that you only had to order 10 books. You didn't have to receive 10 books. And so in particular, what you could do is if you could determine that there was a book that they had in their catalog, but that was actually permanently out of stock, you could order the book you wanted and then 9 copies of the out-of-stock book. And we found this obscure book on lichens. And so when you look at our early orders, we would be ordering 1 book and then 9 copies of this lichen book. And their computer systems would very politely inform us, you know, here's the book you wanted, and we're very sorry about these 9 that we couldn't get. So that worked out fine for us. But things were different than we had expected. So when you're starting something like this, the hardest part usually with doing something that's totally new for consumers is that they don't adapt to the new habit. You know, no matter how convenient it is, even if they have web access on their desk, they don't think about swiveling to their desk and ordering a book. They do what they've always done, which is stop on the way home and buy a book. So we expected, if you look at our initial business plan, years and years and years of slowly training customers that this might be a good way to buy books online. Well, that isn't what happened. And the thing we had overlooked is that at that time, everybody on the internet, 100% of the population, was what demographers call early adopters. These are the first people to use cell phones, the first people to use computers. They're the first people to do everything. And so these guys were very facile at learning new habits. And they adopted this very quickly. And we'd programmed a bell to ring on every computer terminal in the company when we got a sale. And this was very fun at first. You know, the sale would ring, everybody would jump up and go over and look and see what it was. And but then it started being annoying, and it only took a couple of weeks before the bell was ringing enough to be annoying, and so we deprogrammed it. Our first distribution center, this little 400 square foot thing, we quickly expanded. Our landlord fortunately let us expand it to 2,000 square feet on no notice, and which still is pretty small. But it was organized in a great way, a very fun way, different from the way our distribution center is organized today. Today it's more efficient. But at that point, the way our systems worked is we accumulated the orders directly in the warehouse in customer bins so that you could wander around the warehouse. And literally, when you were looking at 3 books side by side, there were 3 books that a single customer was ordering as a single order. And there were lots of vignettes that you could see. You know, you could sort of get little glimpses of what was going on. There was one particular vignette from that era that sticks in my mind, that one customer had ordered 101 ways to make love to your husband, 101 ways to make love to your wife, and then a 3rd book, which was a Hawaii vacation planning guide. And I remember looking at this order, I thought, I think I know what's going on here. So we launched the store in July of '95. And about 10 or so months later, a very interesting thing happened to us. We were featured on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. And this was, as with most things, it was both a blessing and a curse. It was a blessing because it got us a lot of attention from customers. And indeed, our sales dramatically accelerated when that article appeared. But it was a curse because it, for the first time, alerted our competition to the fact that we exist. And it's very easy, actually, to go back to the history and record when, like when that article appeared, very quickly I got calls from Borders, and Barnes & Noble started working on their website, and all sorts of interesting competitive things started to happen at that point. So fast forward a little bit, and what you find. Oh, one more anecdote I have to tell you about from the early days, and you'll get tired. I can tell these anecdotes for too long, and you'll get bored. And besides, Hillary Clinton will be here any minute. But when we started, this is an example of how easy it is to be stupid. And we were this 2,000 square foot distribution, actually it was the 400 square foot, so it was only a few weeks, but we hadn't prepared for any sort of volume, and there was a lot more volume than we expected. And so we had no packing tables. Everybody in the company, we hadn't even hired anybody to help us with the packing. It was all the programmers and myself and the marketing people. Everybody was down in the distribution center. We'd work all day answering customer service emails and doing a little bit more programming, and then go downstairs and pack books. And so we had no packing tables. And so we were packing on these hard cement floors on our hands and knees, wrapping these books. And we did this for like 2 weeks, and it was back-breaking work, and our knees would be raw. And I was doing this with one of the other people in the company. We were down there, and I was like, this is miserable. I said, we've got to do something about this. And he's in his mind thinking, yeah, we've got to get packing tables. And I said, we've got to get knee pads. And he looked at me like I was a Martian. And, but I was serious. That was the solution I came up with. So he said, well, what about packing tables? And I thought that was the most brilliant idea I'd ever heard in my life. And so we did that, and it really dramatically improved things. So let's fast forward a little bit. So the competition was alerted to our existence in sort of May of '96, and they launched about a year later, in May of '97, which was coincident with our initial public offering. And they launched about a week before our IPO. And it was a very interesting time, because the world, pundits and smart people, industry pundits, decided that we were Amazon.toast. And this was a phrase that a particular very smart pundit, who, I mean, I'm not being facetious, he is, started using it on the lecture circuit, and it got picked up by reporters, and it was in Fortune magazine. It was all over the place, Amazon.toast. And he had a very compelling argument. His argument was, look, here's this tiny company that has 125 employees. They have $60 million a year in annual sales. They have 340,000 customers. They don't have a powerful brand name, and we didn't 2 years ago. It's hard to remember, because today I think we do. But at that time, he said, look, these guys have overwhelming advantages. They have a well-known, trusted brand name, and brand name matters a lot online, which is true. And they have purchasing power. They had about an 8% of sales purchasing power advantage over us. And so the question was, which include, the proprietary publishing and all the different stuff. So his question was, how is this small company going to compete? It was fun while it lasted. They really innovated, and we should sort of take off our hat to them as being pioneers. But as with most pioneers, they're going to get steamrolled. Well, at that point, as I said, we had $60 million in annualized sales. Today, we have $1 billion a year in annualized sales, just 22 months or so later. We have 340,000 customers then, and 6.2 million customers now. So how did this happen? How is this possible? And I believe that there is only one explanation for it, and that it is word of mouth, and that the power, that amplification, if you actually do a good job for your customers, that was the one advantage we had, is that we'd been already doing this business for a long time. Our website was better, our customer experience was better. The site just worked better. And I believe that that's part of my evidence for believing that customer experience is so powerful online. And today, we're still 8.5 times plus larger than our nearest competitor. And the gap in absolute dollar terms is growing rather than shrinking. And in terms of customer experience, I tell people at Amazon.com to be afraid, to wake up every morning absolutely terrified. But what should they be afraid of? Not competitors. In our environment, I think we should be afraid of our customers, because our customers are loyal to us right up until the second somebody else offers them a better service. And they're the ones we have a relationship with. They're the ones who give us money. They're the ones we should be terrified of. And and that has been our mantra, that we're trying very hard to be a customer-focused company and not a competitor-focused company. Let me give you, if this thing hasn't logged us off, which always happens, I want to just show you a couple of things which I think are fun on our website. Let me start with, I hate doing live demos because the demo gods are rarely with you. So we'll see if this works. There's so many moving parts. But here's a book that is, it's called The 10th Justice. It's a summer beach book from last year. And it got good reviews in the media as a beach book. It got good beach book reviews from Amazon.com, from People Magazine, and so on. I want to show you our customer reviews. Because this is, while the mainstream reviews from us and others were fairly positive, customers didn't have the same, I mean, it's very mixed. This book was a huge waste of time. It was juvenile. Elective oral surgery would be more enjoyable. The only good thing I can say about this book is that it had an ending. Unfortunately, by the time I got to it, I was completely disgusted and couldn't care less. The characters were self-righteous and underdeveloped, and the plot was thinner than thin. Give me a cookbook John Grisham any day. And it's mixed. There's some here great, one of the year's best, and so on. Here's another one. Don't editors read books before they get published anymore? It goes on. Actually, very funny. So many of our customers are very funny. Excellent idea. Execution needed something. Let's see. Well, very mixed. There's one here that if I can find it quickly, I want to read you because it's so. Don't bother. Hold on. Piece of sophomoric trash. Terrible. 1 star is too high for this work. Here it is. Disappointing. A reader from Japan. 1 star. Imagine yourself in the following unfortunate predicament. You're stuck in the middle seat of a crowded airplane in between 2 sweaty men of substantial girth. Your flight starts doing one of those circling affairs 3,000 feet from the airport due to bad weather, and the flight attendant announces that landing will not occur at any time in the foreseeable future. Then, perhaps, this would be a good book to pull out of your briefcase to read. Otherwise, be prepared to hit your head on the wall in absolute rage for having wasted a few hours of your life on a poor piece of writing. Let's see. Let me show you. There's another cool thing here, which is instant recommendations. For those of you who may not have seen this, if you're a repeat customer, the store greets you by name. It says here, welcome back, Jeff Bezos, and check out your book recommendations. So I click on this, and I've recently bought a lot of books on merchandising and in-store retailing. I'm a science fiction reader, and I've purchased a lot from Amazon.com, so it knows me well. But, and so here, I'll expand that list. We can take a look at it. So you see, retreats. I also bought 4 books on tree houses, because I'm thinking of building a tree house. And that's where the retreats book comes from. Winning with Promotion Power, Juxtaposition is a science fiction book. By Wholesale, by Mail, Visual Merchandising, Between Planets, another science fiction book, and so on. So it does. We use an advanced technology called collaborative filtering. We look at the past purchases of customers, and we use that information to build sort of an electronic soulmate for those customers, and then use the whole group to build the electronic soulmate for a customer, and then try to predict what that person might purchase in the future. Here's another book for me on tree houses. Okay, let's see. Oh, here, this is funny. I'm going to show you something from music. You guys, does everybody know who Barry White is? Barry White, okay. He's the very deep-voiced singer who now I think is featured on Ally McBeal whenever John Cage has amorous thoughts. Okay, let's look at Barry White's all-time greatest hits. So what we have here is, let's look at, here are the, you can listen to, this isn't set up for this in this room, we don't have the sound connected, but you can listen to samples of the music here, 30-second snippets of half a dozen or so different tracks. Here's the Amazon.com review. The most hot-buttered of all soul singers, Barry White is an artist whose CDs come with a purpose. To say what that purpose is not for a family website. But one of our customers, I think, outdid us. Where's this? Here it is. Barry White's velvet voice is a gift from God that I'm sure created more than a few babies in the 70s. And I'm quite sure that he's still helping in that process. So again, very clever customers. And the neat thing about customer reviews is that it's customers helping customers make purchase decisions. And that's what community is. Community is neighbors helping neighbors. You know you live in a community if you can knock on your neighbor's door and get a cup of sugar. Businesses cannot create community. All businesses can do is facilitate community. It's the customers who can create community. One final thing here. Oh, maybe two. Okay. How much time do I have? Oh, yeah, I still got plenty of time for answering questions. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to show you one of our newest features, which is called Gift Click. Let's see. Let's find something here. Something that looks interesting to people. Well, let's go to the books section. Okay, I'm going to need a volunteer in a second. And the volunteer has to be somebody with an email address. Okay. So here's this book, Little Green Men. It's sort of appropriate since we're in Washington, D.C. Now, I want to give this book to somebody in the audience. And do I have a volunteer? Okay. What's your email address? Hold on. Sorry, I wasn't ready. My mistake. Okay, go ahead. NAIP at AOL.com. Did I do that right? NAIP at AOL.com. So I type in, this is called Gift Click. I type in your email address, and I hit the go button. And I can send you a little message. Thanks for listening to me. And I can be done right now. I can just click on that submit button. Actually, I'm going to gift wrap this for you. And I like the sunflowers pattern. And I'm just going to submit the order. And that's done. You'll get that book. That's how simple it was for me to send you a gift. I don't even, and what happens now is you'll get an email message at NAIP and from Amazon.com saying Jeff Bezos has sent you a gift, and we need to know where you would like it delivered. And then you come to a page on our website and type in the delivery address, and the book will be on its way to you. So thank you for your Gift Click order. That's all there is to it. That's Gift Click, brand new feature. One last thing, and I know you got to be careful with demos. You can get carried away. Let me show you our German store. Okay, here's Amazon.de. We have a distribution center in Germany. We have customer service in Germany. Same thing in the UK. Now, how many people in the audience speak German fluently? Okay, just a couple. Let me show you something cool. This is a technology that's not ready for prime time. This is a technology that's been created by Digital. Babelfish, there it is. Babelfish.altavista.com is an automated translator. Now, it works surprisingly well, but not so well as to not be hysterical. Now, what you do is you go to babelfish.altavista.com, then you type in, .de. You type in the URL that you want to be translated, and then you pick the translation. We're going to go from German to English, and then we tell it to translate. Alta Vista is a digital subsidiary, which is now a subsidiary of Compaq Computer. Okay, here we are. Thursday, 18 March, 1999. Beautifully that you are here. If you are for the first time with us, click please here. The Amazon.d Hot of 100, best sellers in the hour clock. Science fiction, culture shock. A prevented musketeer becomes one of its menacing planet into a something world strikes, in which the heading controls the heart. In the something to its old homeland creates the protagonist of 1 million of open gates, a type people customer museum, and causes with it a revolution with the door willing. So utilitarian. Here's another, the CeBIT special, the topics of the yearly. The CeBIT begins today, and everything turns around e-commerce, which Y2K bug will maintain themselves, and is largely and small in the market. With us, you read not only concerning the trends, but also equal the books in edition. And in our gameplay, you can win one of five Palm Pilot 3s. So, interesting. I mean, this is, you can see that another 50 years or so of work, and this will be really extraordinary. So let me tell you what the thing that I think is the most interesting thing, and then if there are any questions, I'd be happy to take them, which is that this truly is day one. This is the beginning of e-commerce, and the opportunity to, Amazon.com may know as much as any other company about e-commerce, but I assure you that we know 2% of what will be known 10 years from now. This is going to be, this is a world where there are going to be thousands and thousands of successful companies created. It's not going to be a winner-take-all type of environment. And you're going to see better discovery technology, things like collaborative filtering. We're going to be able to redecorate the entire store, not just a little piece of it like I showed you, so that if we have 6.2 million customers, we'll have 6.2 million stores. And your store won't be laid out for the mythical average customer. It'll be laid out for you. And our vision at Amazon.com is to be the world's most customer-centric company. And within that, so we don't view ourselves as a bookstore or a music store, we view ourselves as a customer store. And within that, we want to be the place where people can come to find and discover anything that they might want to buy online. And for us, that's always going to include books. So that's where we started, and that's where, if you look at a lot of the people in the company, it's where a lot of their passion is. And that's a place that we're going to put extra effort into making sure we're always the best. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your time. And if there are questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Yes. So with the rapid growth, what management things have we learned? Well, I think one of them is very strong decentralization. I think don't try to manage too much because a hierarchy isn't fast enough, isn't responsive enough to change. I'm still working on trying to get people to occasionally do what I ask them to do, which is very hard. But I think if I were successful in that, then maybe we wouldn't have the right kind of company. So the biggest risk that Amazon.com has, in my opinion, is execution risk, and it's because of what you're talking about. It's the fast growth. We're growing fast. We hold a high customer experience bar, and we have to. And at the same time, we're complicating our business model by adding new geographies, new product categories. This is a very complex thing to execute. So how do you do it well? I believe you mitigate execution risk through two things: having a clear vision that everybody in the company understands, number one, and number two, having super talented people. So we try to mitigate the execution risk on the way in. And I ask everybody at Amazon.com to try and hire folks that in such a way to visualize that 5 years from now, when they look around, they look at all the people we've hired over the last 5 years, they've been there 5 years now, and they say, well, thank God I got in when I did. Because I'd never get hired now. The standards are too high. And that's what we want. That's the only way we can be successful. Are there other questions? Oh, in the back there.
Jeff, could you speak a little bit about Amazon.com's position on territorial rights?
Yeah.
Instances where a U.S. consumer or customer of yours could buy a book at Amazon.com UK, for instance, for which a U.S. publisher holds rights, if the book has not yet been published here.
Sure. The question is on territorial rights and how the internet is, making that very messy. And and I think you're going to hear from Robert Rubin today too. I could be wrong. Is that true? Who's talking, probably more broadly, but on that kind of subject. So what we are doing is, well, as we open distribution centers in the UK, first of all, this mostly only occurs in the problem only occurs in countries where you speak the same language. So the biggest place where this is a problem is the UK and the US. Shipping English language books to Germany is not usually a problem. So but what about the UK and what we do, what our policy is in the UK, if there are both versions of a book available, we stock the UK version. Now people can still order, so then customers can decide whether they want to order from Amazon.com or if they want to order from Amazon.co.uk. If they order from Amazon.co.uk, they get the UK version the next day. If they order from Amazon.com in the US, they get the US version, but it takes, whatever it takes, 4 to 6 weeks unless they use DHL Express. So that's that's sort of pragmatically how it's working today. My suspicion is that over time, and I know this is an extremely complicated issue and it's going to take years to resolve fully, but over time, I bet you that book rights will be sold in a language-centric way instead of a geography-centric way, which fundamentally makes more sense. I mean, we are where we are today, and it's not easy to move from point A to point B, but I bet that's what will happen over a large number of years. Yeah.
Are you concerned about profitability?
Well, so the question is, Amazon.com is a famously unprofitable company, and the question is, are we concerned about it? The answer is, in the short term, no, and in the long term, of course. So every company needs to be profitable at some point in time. There is companies don't live for profits, but they don't live without them either. It's sort of, the profits are sort of like your life, human being's lifeblood. You certainly don't live for your blood, but you aren't going to live long without it either. So our strategy, and we've consistently articulated this, is that we believe that that this opportunity is so large that it would be a mistake for any management team not to invest in it very aggressively at this kind of critical category formation stage. And most people don't know, in December of 1995, just 6 months after Amazon.com had opened, we were profitable. It must have been for about an hour. And I believe that any rational set of investors in the company at that time would have tried to figure out some way to penalize the management team for that performance, because what it meant was that the management team wasn't effective enough to get its act together enough to invest at a rate which would have made the company unprofitable. So if you believe passionately about this, and this is our strategy, we've been clear about it. We don't even claim it's right. We don't claim it's the right strategy. We just claim it's ours. But we do think it's right, and that it would be a mistake to try and optimize for short-term profitability. By the way, our U.S. books business was also profitable in December, and I also personally believe that was a mistake.
Do you believe that your customers would buy more books online for the opportunity to page through an entire book online like they do in general?
Would customers buy more books if they could page through an entire book online? The answer to that is absolutely yes. And we see dramatic sales increases on titles where publishers give us excerpts. So first chapters are a huge addition to our catalog. That's something I should have showed you because you guys are this audience. But down here at the bottom of our homepage, there's this thing called Publisher Resources. And there's an author's guide and a publisher's guide. And if you click on Publisher's Guide, it walks you through step by step all the things as a publisher that you can do to get your books more prominence in our catalog. It's simple stuff, but if you go down, this is a graph of our customer count. But if you go down, you can see these two pictures aren't even legible on the screen when you're up close. But what this basically asks is which book would you be more likely to buy? The one on the left or the one on the right? So, for example, if we don't have cover art of your book in our catalog, you and we are both losing sales. Same thing with excerpts. And this walks you through how to submit excerpts, how to get all that done. We would love to take the whole book. And that's a very enlightened point of view. Many people are worried that, the intellect. You know, people are going to copy it. There have been authors who have put their whole books up online, and then also linked to what you know, some of them tongue-in-cheek, sort of say, feel free to print this out, or you can buy it for $14.95 at Amazon.com, already pre-printed. And of course, everybody buys the pre-printed one. Yeah.
Given the cost of building brand, and building brand on the net, and you stated earlier that you thought there was room for a lot of players. How do you think can boutiques coexist with an Amazon.com, which is now broad units?
So the question is, with the expense of building brand, can boutiques exist online in this new sort of e-commerce world? My opinion on that is absolutely yes. And the way that they will exist online is through word of mouth and building a great customer experience. So what they'll have to do is pick a niche in which they can be genuinely better than everybody else. And then the customers will find them. So one of this is, again, that the balance of power moves away from the merchant and toward the customer. That's the high order bit of everything that matters online. And what it means is that anybody who's creating genuine customer value will be able to find an audience. They may not be able to grow into a huge business with that strategy, but they will be able to find a sustainable, profitable business, in my opinion. Yeah.
Authors are sometimes unhappy to hear from Amazon.com that when a book is not available, Amazon said it's out of print for 5 weeks or what.
Right.
And the book was only published 5 months ago, and the author is very upset.
Yeah.
What is the
Yeah, so the question is, authors are often very upset when the data in the catalog is incorrect, either regarding availability or it actually also happens with price and misspellings of names and all sorts of stuff. I'm sorry? Okay, well that's what I meant by availability. But yeah, sometimes we'll say something's out of print when it's really in print. Sometimes we also say stuff's in print when it's really out of print. It's very interesting. You know, 3 years ago, our catalog had more errors in it than it does today. The catalog quality has gotten very, very good, and there are isolated examples where it's bad. But and of course, authors look at their own books and they're always unhappy. But 3 years ago, because we were so small, nobody cared. So they would look and they would see, yeah, lots of bad data, so what? Now, people really care. And as a result, we have been overwhelmed with requests to fix typos and various stuff. And we are completely restaffing and revamping that area. And the goal is to provide service to authors and publishers on those types of typo and availability problems that is every bit as good as the service levels that we have historically given to customers. I think it'll take us, 6 months or so before we're there. But there is a process for that, and it's in the publisher thing. What you have to do is you go to catalog typo, you send email to catalog typos at Amazon.com, and it gets fixed.
Jeff, I can't thank you enough. Wasn't this terrific? I mean, wonderful. We have a little gift for you. Everybody, thank you so much. I just think that this is phenomenal. We are now to go upstairs to the state dining room. Anyone who has big bags may have to check them with security or the hotel. Board members, we need you in the holding room behind the podium. You know who you are. So we will see you back there. We're off to lunch, and everything seems to be working right on time.
Jeff Bezos is the founder and CEO of Amazon.com, currently the nation's largest web-based bookseller. We show the